The air at Brussels airport was crisp and cold in the morning. Through the dim boarding lounge, a lone African man moved quietly, almost unseen. He wore a faded gray coat, worn sneakers, and a canvas backpack slung over one shoulder. No one gave him a second glance. Security officers walked past. Nearby, businessmen laughed loudly over new mining deals in Africa. None of them knew. The man by the window, calmly reading from his phone, was no ordinary traveler. He was Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso, returning home from a summit that could change the fate of a continent. Across the lounge, frustration boiled over. A powerful French CEO, late for boarding, erupted in anger. He demanded, by force, a seat in business class. Airline staff scrambled. When a senior flight attendant boarded the plane, scanning the cabin for someone to remove, her eyes locked onto one man, the man in seat A22-2A. The man she decided didn't belong. What happened next shocked the world, sparked a global scandal, and reminded everyone that true power needs no throne. And true dignity speaks loudest without a single word shouted. This is the shocking story of what happened to President Ibrahim Traoré in seat 2A on Horizon France Air. The Brussels airport boarding lounge was chilly and dim before dawn. Amid the hum of rolling suitcases, a lone African man walked slowly into the boarding area. His faded gray coat, worn sneakers, and plain canvas backpack drew no attention. He wasn't in a rush. He didn't look around. No one accompanied him. To the world, he was just another Enja and be invisible African traveler. He chose a window seat, sat down gently, and pulled out his phone to read emails, calm, patient, silent. Security officers passed by. Businessmen nearby boasted about a lucrative mining project in Central Africa. Not one glanced at the quiet man by the window. They had no idea. His name was Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso, returning from a summit on gold mining rights and Africa's economic future. This flight was his final journey. Home. A leader without a crown, without an entourage. Ibrahim believed true power didn't need to be flaunted. It only needed to be held by someone who understood its weight. Boarding began. The usual announcements played, nothing out of the ordinary, until an angry shout shattered the calm. A man stormed into the priority lane at the last second, face red with fury, waving a first-class ticket. This was a Gaspard Leroy, 55, a French CEO whose energy company operated in over a dozen African countries. Dressed in a tailored navy suit, red silk tie, and silver-framed glasses, he cut an imposing figure. When a gate agent informed him business class was full, he froze as if the words were incomprehensible. "I'm a strategic partner of Burkina Faso," he barked. "You expect me to sit in economy? Who made this ridiculous decision?" He slammed his hand on the counter. Staff panicked. Within minutes, he was on the phone with airline executives, threatening legal action. A supervisor radioed the head flight attendant. "Handle this quietly." A woman in a crisp uniform stepped onto the jet bridge. She commanded attention, not by rank, but by attitude. Brigitte Lamont, 48, was a seasoned flight attendant. Broad-shouldered, no nonsense, her navy uniform immaculate, her lips painted bold red. She had been told a VIP needed a business class seat, but she didn't ask who. She marched onto the plane, scanning for someone to remove. Her eyes landed on Traoré. Seat 2A. The quiet man in the gray coat. He doesn't belong here, she decided. Without hesitation, she approached him. "Sir, due to a scheduling issue, we need to rearrange seating. Would you mind moving to economy?" Ibrahim looked up slowly. His face remained calm. Without a word, he pulled out his boarding pass. "Business class, seat 2A, priority booking." Brigitte barely glanced at it. Her polite smile vanished. Her expression said everything. "How could someone like you have this seat?" She pushed the pass back into his hand and walked away, muttering under her breath. People like him always make things difficult. When Ibrahim refused to move, Brigitte pressured 2 other African passengers out of their seats instead. One reluctantly gathered his things after her icy stare. A seat was now free for Gaspard Leroy, who strutted in, accepted champagne, and smirked as if entitled. But Brigitte wasn't done. She returned to Ibrahim, arms crossed, expecting him to know his place, enter and leave. Instead, he stood, calm, unhurried, unshaken. He didn't raise his voice. He simply looked at her, his gaze piercing through her facade. Then he spoke, his voice soft but razor-sharp. To judge someone by their skin is to proudly declare your own ignorance. The words struck Brigitte like a slap. She opened her mouth, but had no reply. The landing. 6 hours later, the plane descended into Ouagadougou. A line of black SUVs waited on the tarmac. Gaspard smirked. Looks like they're here for me. But as the doors opened, armed officers OIR marched aboard. A senior officer stopped at our seat 2A, stood at attention, and saluted. Mr. President, welcome home. Silence. Then, gasps. A wine glass shattered. Brigitte froze, the passenger list slipping from her fingers. Gaspard's face drained of color. President? He stammered, staring at the man he'd ignored the entire flight. Ibrahim stood, buttoned his coat, and nodded to the officer. No anger, no arrogance, just quiet authority. Every passenger in business class lowered their eyes in shame. The aftermath. Brigitte and Gaspard were escorted off the plane, not as VIPs, but in disgrace. Horizon France Air issued a hollow apology. Videos of the incident went viral. Respect Africa trended worldwide. At a press conference, a reporter asked Ibrahim, "Will you press charges?" He smiled. "I don't want them punished. I want them to learn, to see people not through prejudice, but through human eyes." By week's end, Brigitte was suspended. Gaspard's mining deal collapsed. The airline launched a diversity program. Too little, too late. But the real lesson? True dignity doesn't demand respect. It commands it.